Have you ever wondered why some people seem to attract everything they want, while others spend their whole lives struggling without achieving their goals? Why do certain individuals thrive even in the face of adversity, while others sink at the first difficulties? The answer isn't in magic formulas, superficial positive thinking, or mystical secrets locked away. The real key to manifesting everything you desire was revealed over 2,000 years ago by the Stoic philosophers, men who ruled empires, faced persecutions, and transformed their lives through timeless principles. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome, and one of the most powerful men in the ancient world, wrote in his Meditations, "The happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts." Epictetus, who was born a slave and became one of the most influential philosophers in history, taught that it's not events that disturb people, but the way they interpret them. These men understood something profound. You don't manifest what you want, you manifest who you are. External wealth is just a reflection of internal wealth. Visible success is the consequence of invisible mastery over yourself. And that's exactly what we're going to explore today. In this video, we're going to dive into the 7 Stoic rules that have the power to completely transform your reality. We're not talking about mental tricks or positive self-deception. We're talking about time-tested principles applied by emperors, generals, entrepreneurs, and sages throughout the centuries. Get ready to discover how absolute control over your mind can create absolute success in your life. How accepting what we can't change gives us power to transform what we can. And how the oldest philosophy in the Western world holds the most powerful secrets for manifesting the life you desire. Before we start, if you're looking for real wisdom to transform your life, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Every video here is a journey of deep transformation. Let's get started. 1. Control only. What's under your domain? The fundamental law of manifestation. The first and most fundamental Stoic rule for manifesting everything you desire might seem contradictory at first glance. Accept that you don't control the outcomes, only your actions and thoughts. Epictetus taught us to divide all things into 2 categories: what's under our control and what's not. Under our control are our thoughts, our choices, our reactions, and our actions. Outside our control are the results, other people's opinions, external circumstances, and even our own body to a certain extent. Most people live the opposite way. They obsess over outcomes, what others think, circumstances they can't change. And in that obsession, they completely lose control over the only thing that really matters, themselves. Imagine an archer getting ready to shoot his arrow. He can control his posture, his breathing, the strength with which he pulls the string the moment he releases the arrow. All of that is under his domain. But once the arrow leaves his bow, a gust of wind might deflect it. An animal might cross its path. The target might move. None of that is under his control anymore. The wise archer, the one who truly manifests his goals, doesn't obsessively worry about hitting the target. He focuses on perfecting every aspect of his technique that's under his control. And curiously, it's exactly this archer who hits his targets the most. Seneca wrote, "Let go of your 1,000 commitments and remember, you have only one obligation: to become a better person." When you stop wasting mental energy trying to control the uncontrollable, something magical happens. All that energy that was dissipated in anxiety, worry, and frustration can now be channeled into what really makes a difference. Let me tell you a story. I knew an entrepreneur who spent years obsessed with his business's success. He constantly worried about the competition, market conditions, what clients thought. He lived anxiously, slept poorly, and ironically, his business stagnated. One day, after a nervous breakdown, he discovered Stoicism. He started applying this fundamental principle: control only what's under your domain. He stopped worrying about the competition and focused on improving his own products. He stopped trying to predict the market and started perfecting his internal processes. He stopped anguishing over every criticism and focused on being integrous in every action. In 2 years, his business tripled in size. But the most interesting thing is that he said, "The success came, but what really changed my life was the inner peace. Today, if everything falls apart tomorrow, I know I did my best with what was under my control." And that gives me a freedom that no money could buy. This is the first great truth about manifestation. When you stop trying to control the universe and start controlling yourself, the universe seems to start conspiring in your favor. Not by magic, but because you've finally directed your energy where it can really make a difference. Ask yourself now, how much of your mental energy is being wasted trying to control what can't be controlled? How much could you achieve if all that energy was redirected to your own actions and growth? 2. Transform obstacles into opportunities, the alchemy of adversity. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, left us one of the most powerful lessons on manifestation. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. This rule completely revolutionizes how we see challenges. For most people, an obstacle is the end of the road. For the Stoic, the obstacle is the road itself. It's not something to be avoided or lamented. It's something to be used, transformed, leveraged. Think about fire. You can throw different materials into it. A piece of paper turns to ashes. It's destroyed. But gold? Gold is purified, refined, made more valuable. The difference isn't in the fire, but in the nature of the material facing the fire. The Stoics taught that our soul, when properly cultivated, is like gold. Adversities don't destroy us. They refine us. Every obstacle is an opportunity to become stronger, wiser, more resilient. But pay attention. This isn't just naive positive thinking. It's not about pretending problems don't exist or smiling in the face of suffering. It's about developing the real ability to extract value from every situation, no matter how difficult. Let me share a concrete example. Thomas Edison tried over 1,000 times to create the electric light bulb before succeeding. When a reporter asked how he felt after 1,000 failures, Edison replied, "I didn't fail 1,000 times. I learned 1,000 ways how not to make a light bulb." That's the Stoic mindset in action. Each failure wasn't an obstacle to success. It was part of the path to success. Adversity didn't prevent him from manifesting his vision. It was the very process through which the vision manifested. Seneca wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, just as labor strengthens the body." But there's something even deeper here. When you develop the skill to transform obstacles into opportunities, something extraordinary happens to your psyche. You stop being afraid, not because you don't recognize dangers, but because you know that, whatever happens, you have the ability to turn it into something useful. This absence of fear completely changes your energy, your confidence, your presence. And those qualities attract opportunities, people, and resources like a magnet. Here's the truth that few understand. You don't manifest success despite obstacles. You manifest success through obstacles. Every challenge you face and transform adds a new dimension to your ability to create the life you desire. When a muscle is exercised to the limit, it doesn't get weaker. It adapts and gets stronger. Your ability to manifest works the same way. Every obstacle overcome isn't just a victory. It's a permanent strengthening of your capacity to win. Look now at the biggest obstacle you're facing. Stop seeing it as an enemy. Ask yourself, what can this obstacle teach me? How can I use it to become stronger? What opportunity is hidden inside this difficulty? Change your perspective, and you'll change your reality. 3. Live in harmony with universal nature, the principle of natural flow. The Stoics had a profound concept that many misinterpret: living according to nature. They weren't just talking about trees and animals, but about the natural order of the universe, the inevitable flow of reality. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Everything that is in harmony with you, O universe, is in harmony with me." This is a powerful principle of manifestation that most people don't understand. It's not about passivity or resignation. It's about aligning your ambitions with the natural flow of life instead of fighting against it. Imagine a river flowing toward the sea. You can swim against the current. You'll get exhausted, maybe drown, and certainly won't get very far. Or you can swim with the current, using the river's natural force to take you where you want to go, getting there with much less effort and much more success. Living in harmony with nature means understanding the laws of reality and working with them, not against them. It means recognizing that there are seasons in life, natural cycles that can't be forced. A wise farmer doesn't try to force wheat to grow faster by yelling at it. He plants in the right season, cares for the soil, irrigates when needed, and then lets nature do its work. He works with the natural cycles, not against them. The same principle applies to manifesting your desires. There are times to plant and times to harvest, times of growth and times of consolidation, times of intense action and times of strategic patience. Forcing what isn't ready to happen is wasting energy and creating frustration. Epictetus taught us, don't demand that things happen as you wish. Wish for them to happen as they do, and you'll live well. It seems contradictory to talk about manifestation and acceptance at the same time, doesn't it? But here's the secret. Acceptance isn't resignation, it's wisdom. Seneca said, a long life isn't measured by years, but by achievements. Some people force things so much that, even living 80 years, they accomplish little. Others flow with life, acting wisely at the right moment, and accomplish in 40 years what others don't in 2 lifetimes. Living in harmony with nature also means accepting that you're part of a greater whole. Your ambitions don't exist in a vacuum. They're intertwined with other people's lives, with larger circumstances, with forces you don't see. When you try to force something that's not aligned with this greater flow, you encounter constant resistance. Doors close, obstacles multiply. Life seems to conspire against you. Not because you're unlucky, but because you're swimming against the current. But when you're aligned, when your ambition resonates with something bigger than yourself, when your work serves not just you, but the whole, doors start opening in an almost magical way. The right people appear. Opportunities arise. What was difficult becomes natural. This doesn't mean you should passively wait for signs from the universe. It means you should act wisely, observe the results, adjust your course when necessary, and trust that, if you're doing your part with excellence, nature will do its. Ask yourself, am I forcing something that's not flowing naturally? Or am I resisting accepting life's natural timing? There's a difference between wise persistence and blind stubbornness. Learn to recognize that difference. Aim for practice negative visualization, the paradox of gratitude through loss. This is one of the most counterintuitive Stoic practices and, paradoxically, one of the most powerful for manifesting abundance. Negative visualization, or premeditatio malorum. While modern positive thinking tells you to imagine only good things, the Stoics did exactly the opposite. They regularly visualized losing everything they had. Seneca advised, set aside a few days in which you'll be content with the simplest food, rough clothing, and ask yourself, is this what I feared so much? It sounds depressing, doesn't it? But here's the genius of this practice. When you regularly contemplate losing everything you have, 2 extraordinary things happen. First, you develop deep gratitude for what you have now. People who never contemplate loss live in constant dissatisfaction, always focused on what they don't have. But when you clearly imagine life without your home, without your family, without your health, and then open your eyes and realize you still have them, a wave of authentic gratitude floods your being. And gratitude, my friends, is one of the most powerful mental states for manifesting abundance. Not because it attracts things through some mystical law, but because when you're genuinely grateful, you're present, alert, and able to recognize and seize the opportunities that already exist around you. Second, and perhaps even more important, you remove fear's power over your life. What paralyzes most people isn't failure itself. It's the fear of failure. What stops people from risking, trying, going after their dreams, is the terror of what could happen if things go wrong. But when you regularly visualize the worst possible scenario and realize you could survive it, that you'd be able to rebuild, adapt, continue, that fear loses its power over you. Marcus Aurelius practiced this daily. As emperor of Rome, he had everything a man could desire. And every day he reminded himself that he could lose it all. He imagined betrayal, illness, death. And then returning to the present moment, He valued what he had and acted without the paralyzing weight of fear. Let me tell you about an entrepreneur who applied this principle dramatically. He'd built a successful business and lived comfortably, but he felt something was missing. He'd become complacent, settled. So, he decided to do a Stoic experiment. For a whole month, he lived as if he'd lost everything. He moved to a simple apartment, ate basic meals, gave up all luxuries. Not out of masochism, but as an extreme exercise in negative visualization. What happened was transformative. First, he realized the worst scenario wasn't as terrible as he imagined. He could live happily with much less. This removed the fear that without realizing it was limiting his business decisions. Second, when he returned to his normal life, every little comfort became an appreciated luxury. His gratitude exploded. And third, freed from fear and full of gratitude, he had the courage to make bold changes in his business that he'd postponed for years. In 2 years, his company doubled in size. But he says the real gift wasn't the financial growth. It was the psychological freedom from being a slave neither to the fear of loss nor to desperate attachment to what he had. Seneca wrote, "We put things in danger when we don't recognize them as perishable. When you live as if everything is permanent, you become complacent. When you recognize the temporary nature of all things, you value them while you have them and act with wise urgency." The practice is simple. Regularly, maybe before bed, visualize losing something important to you. Your job, your home, a loved one. Not in a morbid or obsessive way, but as an exercise in perspective. Imagine yourself dealing with the loss, surviving, adapting. Then, open your eyes to the present reality. Realize you haven't lost it yet. Feel the gratitude, and use that energy of gratitude and freedom from fear to act courageously toward your goals. This practice seems counterproductive, but it's extraordinarily effective. It turns fear into freedom, complacency into gratitude, and anxiety about the future into powerful action in the present. What do you fear losing the most? Face that fear head-on through negative visualization. You'll discover that fear loses its power, and you gain an inner strength that nothing can take away. 5. Cultivate virtue as true wealth, the only indestructible treasure. Here's a truth that might sound strange in a video about manifesting success and wealth. For the Stoics, true wealth isn't in gold, but in character. True manifestation isn't of external possessions but of internal qualities. Seneca, who was one of the richest men in Rome, wrote, "Poverty doesn't consist in possessing little, but in desiring much. Rich isn't the one who has much, but the one who needs little." Before you think this is just a philosophy of renunciation, let me explain the practical power of this principle. The Stoics identified 4 cardinal virtues: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, and they argued that cultivating these virtues was more valuable than accumulating any material fortune. Why? Because everything external can be taken from you. Your wealth can vanish in an economic crisis. Your health can fail. Your status can evaporate. But your character, the qualities you've developed within yourself, those no one can steal. Marcus Aurelius faced plagues, wars, betrayals, and every imaginable adversity. And he wrote, "If you're distressed by something external, the pain isn't due to the thing itself but to your own estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. See what happens when you cultivate virtue as true wealth. You become someone people trust, want to work with, turn to in tough times. You develop wise judgment that leads to better decisions. You act with integrity, which builds a solid reputation. You have courage to seize opportunities others fear. And curiously, these internal qualities tend to manifest external abundance. Not because the universe rewards virtue, though that's one way to see it, but because virtuous people naturally create value in the world, and the world tends to reward value creation. Let me tell you about a man who embodied this principle. He started as a simple salesman, without privileged formal education, without connections, without capital. But he had something more valuable: absolute integrity. While other salesmen pushed products clients didn't need to meet quotas, He only sold when he genuinely believed it was best for the client. While others lied about product features, he was brutally honest about limitations. While others abandoned clients after the sale, he maintained long-term relationships. At first, he earned less than his dishonest colleagues. But something started happening. Clients began to trust him completely. They started referring him to others. They came back for every new purchase. His reputation grew. 15 years later, that salesman had built a multi-million-dollar business based entirely on referrals and the trust he'd cultivated. Meanwhile, his former colleagues, who prioritized quick profit over integrity, most had disappeared from the market or were jumping from job to job. What did he manifest? Material wealth, yes. But it was a consequence of what he really cultivated: virtuous character. And when the 2008 financial crisis came and many businesses failed, his remained strong, sustained by the unwavering loyalty of clients who trusted him more than any company. Epictetus, who was a slave and owned nothing material, taught the richest men in Rome. Why? Because he possessed something they didn't: wisdom and inner peace. And in the end, they were willing to pay fortunes just to be in his presence and learn. This is the paradoxical Stoic truth. When you stop chasing external wealth as the ultimate goal and start cultivating internal wealth, wisdom, integrity, courage, self-control, you often end up manifesting more external wealth than if you'd chased it directly. Why? Because you become someone valuable, and the world pays well for real value. You become trustworthy, and trust is the foundation of all profitable relationships. You develop wise judgment, and good decisions compounded over time create wealth inevitably. But there's something even deeper. When your identity isn't tied to external possessions, you're free to take calculated risks. You can try and fail without being psychologically destroyed. You can lose money without losing yourself. And that kind of psychological freedom is exactly what enables the greatest successes. Seneca wrote, "A happy man is one for whom no reverse is a disaster." When your true wealth is inside you, in your virtues, in your character, in your ability to respond wisely to any situation, you become practically invincible. The question then isn't, how can I make more money? But, what kind of person do I need to become so that wealth is a natural consequence? Are you cultivating wisdom? Are you acting with integrity, even when it costs? Are you developing courage to do what's right? These are the true practices of manifestation. Become a person of real value, and external value will naturally flow to you. 6. Practice daily discipline. The accumulated power of small actions. The Stoics didn't believe in grand dramatic gestures or sudden transformations. They believed in the transformative power of daily discipline, of small consistent actions repeated over time. Marcus Aurelius woke up every day before dawn to write in his journal. Epictetus taught his students to examine every action, every thought. Seneca set aside time every day for study and reflection. They understood something profound. You don't change your life in a moment of inspiration. You change it in 1,000 moments of discipline. Well begun is half done, Aristotle said. But the Stoics would go further. Well continued is all done. Consistency beats intensity. Small daily actions compounded over time create extraordinary results. Think about it this way. If you improve just 1% a day, in a year, you'll be 37 times better. 1% seems insignificant. A single day of improvement seems to make no difference. But the math of compounding is relentless. Small, consistent improvements multiply into dramatic transformations. Most people fail to manifest their desires not for lack of ambition or knowledge. They fail for lack of daily discipline. They have big plans, make enthusiastic promises to themselves, and then do nothing concrete the next day. Or worse, they act intensely for a few days, burn out, and then quit completely. It's like wanting to cross an ocean by swimming. If you swim frantically for an hour and then stop exhausted, you drown. But if you swim moderately and steadily for days, you eventually reach the other shore. Seneca wrote, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that they are difficult." Daily discipline removes that artificial difficulty. When something becomes habit, it stops being difficult. It becomes simply what you do. The Stoics practiced what they called daily examination. At the end of each day, they reviewed their actions, their thoughts, their reactions. What did they do well? Where did they fail? How could they do better tomorrow? This simple ritual of disciplined self-reflection has extraordinary power. It keeps you aware, intentional, in constant growth. Without it, you can easily spend years repeating the same mistakes, living on autopilot, and then wonder why your life doesn't change. Daily discipline also builds something precious: genuine self-confidence. When you do what you promised yourself to do, day after day, even when it's hard, even when you don't feel like it, your mind starts to trust you. You know you can count on yourself, and that self-confidence radiates into every area of your life. Compare that to the person who makes big promises and doesn't keep them. Every broken promise teaches your subconscious mind that you're not reliable. You stop believing in yourself, and when you don't believe you can do something, you simply won't do it. Marcus Aurelius woke up reluctant some mornings like any of us, and he wrote, "At dawn, when you rise unwillingly, have this thought ready: I am rising to do the work of a human being." He reminded himself of his purpose, his discipline, who he had decided to be. Here's the brutal truth: you don't need more motivation. Motivation is a fleeting feeling. You need discipline, the ability to act regardless of how you feel. Identify now one small but meaningful action that, if done daily, would transform your life. Just one. Not 10. One. And then, no matter how you feel, do that action every single day for the next 90 days. It doesn't have to be perfect. If you miss a day, simply pick it up the next day without drama or guilt. But commit to consistency, and watch how, seemingly out of nowhere, your life starts to transform. The Stoics knew we don't control outcomes, but we control our daily actions. And when you master your daily actions through discipline, the outcomes inevitably take care of themselves. 7. Prepare for death, the urgency that creates full life. This last rule is the most powerful and the most neglected. The Stoics regularly practiced memento mori. Remember that you will die. It sounds morbid, doesn't it? But it's exactly the opposite. It's the most liberating and life-affirming practice there is. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think." Here's the truth. Most people live as if they're immortal. They put off their dreams for someday. They hold grudges as if they have infinite time to resolve them. They waste years in jobs they hate, toxic relationships, trivial worries, because unconsciously they believe there will always be tomorrow. But there's no such guarantee. You could die today. You will certainly die someday, and between now and then, every day that passes is a day you'll never get back. When you really internalize this, not intellectually but viscerally, something radical happens. You stop wasting time. You stop putting off what matters. You act with conscious urgency. Seneca lost everything twice in his life and was exiled for years. He faced his own mortality repeatedly, and he wrote, "It is not that we have little time, but that we waste much of it." Most people don't need more time. They need to use better the time they have. Awareness of death doesn't make you give up on life. It makes you appreciate it intensely. It doesn't make you pessimistic. It makes you focused. It doesn't make you fearful. It makes you courageous. Let me tell you about a man who completely transformed his life through this practice. He lived for 40 years in a secure but unsatisfying job, in a worn-out marriage, dreaming of a different life, but without the courage to change it. Then, at 58, he had a health scare. For a moment, he thought he was going to die. And in that moment, brutal clarity hit him. He'd wasted decades of his only life out of fear, for comfort, to please others. Fortunately, it wasn't anything serious. But that moment changed everything. He started practicing memento mori daily. Every morning, he reminded himself, "I could die today. This could be my last chance to really live." In 6 months, he'd quit the unsatisfying job, started the business he'd always dreamed of, and honestly communicated to his spouse what needed to change in the relationship. It wasn't easy. There was discomfort, uncertainty, fear, but for the first time in decades, he was truly alive. 5 years later, at 63, he said, "I've lived more in these 5 years than in the previous 40. Awareness of death gave me the gift of life." Epictetus taught his students, "When you kiss your child, remember that he is mortal." It seems cruel, but the effect is the opposite. When you remember that those you love won't be here forever, you stop wasting time on trivial fights. You appreciate every moment. You say the important words while you still can. Awareness of death also removes procrastination about your dreams. That book you want to write, that trip you want to take, that difficult but necessary conversation you're putting off. When you really understand that your time is limited and uncertain, you stop waiting for the perfect moment and act with what you have, where you are. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the world, practiced this daily. He wrote, "Focus on the present moment and ask yourself, what is unbearable in this, what is beyond enduring?" He knew that each moment was all he really possessed. This practice also heals excessive attachment to outcomes. When you deeply understand that you could die tomorrow, you stop postponing your happiness until you achieve a certain goal. You learn to find satisfaction in the process, in the effort, in the present, regardless of the future outcome. That doesn't mean you stop having ambitions or goals. It means you don't sacrifice your present life for a hypothetical future life. You act with purpose now, not because it guarantees a specific future, but because it's the only worthy way to live the present. Death is the only absolute certainty in life, but instead of being a reason for despair, it can be your greatest teacher. It teaches you what really matters. It removes the trivial and reveals the essential. It gives you urgency to truly live. Practice this. Every night before bed, imagine you won't wake up. How do you feel about the day you lived? Is there something important you left undone? Something you needed to say? Someone you should have hugged? And then, when you wake up the next morning, an unexpected gift of another day, live like someone who's been given a second chance. Because that's exactly what you've been given. We've reached the end of this journey through the 7 Stoic rules of manifestation. But let me be crystal clear about something. These aren't magic formulas. They're not psychological tricks. They're principles tested for over 2,000 years, applied by emperors, slaves, generals, and sages. The promise of Stoicism isn't that you'll get everything you want. It's something much deeper, that you'll become someone capable of handling any outcome, extracting value from any situation, and living with dignity and purpose regardless of external circumstances. And curiously, when you reach that state of inner mastery, you often manifest much more than you imagined possible. Not because the universe mystically rewards you, but because you've become the kind of person who naturally creates value, attracts opportunities, and turns obstacles into stepping stones. Let's quickly review what we've learned. Control only what's under your domain. Free yourself from the anxiety of the uncontrollable and channel all your energy into what you can really change. Transform obstacles into opportunities. Every challenge is an invitation to grow. Every difficulty is the path in disguise. Live in harmony with universal nature. Align yourself with reality's flow instead of fighting against it uselessly. Practice negative visualization. Cultivate deep gratitude and free yourself from fear's paralyzing power. Cultivate virtue as true wealth. Build a character that no one can take from you and that naturally attracts external abundance. Practice daily discipline. Small, consistent actions compounded over time create impossible transformations. Prepare for death. Live with the conscious urgency of someone who knows time is the most precious and limited resource. These 7 rules aren't separate. They're facets of a single truth. You don't manifest what you want. You manifest who you are. Change who you are, and your external reality will inevitably change to reflect that inner transformation. Seneca summed it up perfectly. Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. These rules are your preparation. Opportunities will come. Life guarantees that. The question is, will you be ready when they arrive? You don't need to apply all 7 rules perfectly tomorrow. In fact, trying to do that, you'll probably fail and give up. Instead, choose one, the one that resonated most with you, that you need most in your life right now, and commit to practicing it deeply for the next 90 days. Just one. But practice it seriously, with discipline, with brutal honesty with yourself. Watch how that single practice starts to transform not just that area of your life, but all areas. And always remember Marcus Aurelius's words. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. This is the essence of all genuine manifestation. Not controlling the world, but mastering yourself in such a way that you can navigate any world you encounter. Now, I want to hear from you. Which of these 7 rules impacted you the most? Which one are you going to start practicing today? Share in the comments. Not just for me, but as a public commitment to yourself. If this video brought real value to you, share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Subscribe to the channel to continue this journey of practical wisdom and real transformation. And above all, remember, the Stoics weren't just philosophers, they were practitioners. They lived these principles, tested them in the most extreme circumstances, and passed on only what worked. Now, it's up to you to test them in your own life. The path is laid out. The wisdom is shared. Now, everything depends on you. As Epictetus said, don't explain your philosophy. Embody it. Go and manifest not through magical thoughts, but through disciplined action, virtuous character, and inner mastery. This is true manifestation. This is true wealth. Until the next video, live with wisdom.